According to the World Health Organization, 1 out of every 3 women around the world will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. And millions of children will witness or suffer abuse or neglect before they turn 18. These numbers are more than numbers. They are lives. Lives like Helen's, a woman whose silence almost cost her life and the lives of her children. This is her story. Greenview Estate was the kind of place middle-income Lagos families loved. Quiet enough to breathe, busy enough to feel alive. Neatly arranged rows of cream-painted buildings, trimmed hedges along the walkways, the distant laughter of children running between blocks, and the warm evening glow that made the estate look almost peaceful, almost perfect. But even the calmest places have secrets. When Emma moved into Block C, she didn't think much of the neighbors, just regular people trying to survive Lagos like everyone else. But within a few weeks, she noticed something strange about the family living next door. Something that made the air around their house feel heavier, colder, quieter than the rest. There was Maya, a bright 13-year-old girl who always smiled, yet her eyes told a different story. Eyes that flickered with fear, even when laughter left her lips. A small face framed by neatly tied braids, hands that fidgeted as if holding back more than homework stress, holding back the weight of something far darker. There was Daniel, just 8, cheerful, gentle, far too mature for his age. He walked carefully, always observing, always calculating, as though stepping quietly would prevent the next disaster. He carried himself like a little man, shoulders hunched from lessons no child should learn. And then there was Helen, their mother. Quiet, soft-spoken, the kind of woman who apologized even when she wasn't wrong. And then there was their father, Stephen. Tall, always frowning. The kind of man whose presence changes the air when he walks into a room. Even the birds outside seemed to hush when he passed the windows. Helen had been a single mother before she married Stephen. Maya was her first child. Daniel came later, after the marriage. This was why Stephen treated Daniel a bit better, while Maya bore the brunt of her father's unpredictable cruelty. Every glance from him could slice through the walls of their home. Every raised voice made hearts tremble, and every door that slammed echoed like a warning. Submit or suffer. Before we go deeper into the story, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss other intriguing stories from D Muse Studio. At first, Emma tried to mind her business. She was a single woman, working hard, living alone, paying her own bills, focused on her life. Domestic issues were not her problem. She wakes up in the morning and prepares for work. She makes her tea. She smiles at the neighbors. She believed survival meant keeping to herself. But you see, fear has a sound. Pain has a way of spilling through walls. Some nights, she heard muffled crying, soft whispers that ended abruptly, the sudden hush whenever Stephen's footsteps echoed in the corridor. Even the furniture seemed to brace itself when he walked by. And one Saturday morning, everything changed. Stephen had left earlier than usual that morning. The sunlight streamed through Emma's window, casting familiar shadows on her floor. Minutes passed, then a soft knock. When she opened, Helen stood at the door. Her hands shook, her lips quivered, her eyes were swollen from crying. The weight of months, maybe years of fear, pressed into her posture. With tears in her eyes, Helen said, "Please, help me. I can't take it anymore." Emma's heart sank. She motioned for Helen to come inside. Helen collapsed onto the sofa, her shoulders trembling. And then she began to speak. She told Emma everything. Stephen had been beating her for years, beating Maya, sometimes even Daniel, though less often. Every time she threatened to report him, he would hiss the same chilling words. "If you try it, your daughter will disappear." Helen had married him to give a home to her daughter, but the marriage had become a prison. A house where love died quietly, where fear became the language spoken in every corner. Emma listened, heart heavy. Her chest ached for Helen, for Maya, for Daniel. She wanted to confront Stephen immediately, to scream, to strike, to take control of the situation. But Helen grasped her hands tightly. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Please, don't. If something happens to Maya, I won't survive it." Emma nodded. At least until Helen and the children were safe. Her mind raced, formulating a plan. Fear for Helen's and the children's lives tempered her instinct to act. But life has a cruel sense of timing. Stephen returned home earlier than expected. His shoes thumped against the corridor tiles. Daniel, nervous, looked up at his father when he asked, "Where is your mother?" The boy, innocent and unaware of the storm, said she went to Auntie Emma's house. Maya's small hands shot out to stop him, but it was too late. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. When Helen returned, Stephen was waiting. His eyes were dark, stormy, and dangerous. That night, the beating was worse than anything Helen had endured before. Bruises blossomed across her arms and shoulders. Maya flinched at every movement. Even Daniel flinched. By the next day, the real nightmare began. Maya never returned from school. They were walking home when a black car pulled up beside them. Two masked men jumped out. Before Daniel could react, they grabbed Maya, covering her mouth, and in seconds, she was gone. The car sped off, tires screaming against the asphalt. Daniel ran home, trembling, as the city carried on around him unaware. Stephen stayed home all day. He acted surprised. He pretended to help look for her, but Helen and Emma knew the truth. Stephen had finally carried out his threat. They reported to the police, and they were told to wait. 2 days passed without a word. No ransom call, no update. Anxiety gnawed at Emma and Helen. And then, late one evening, Emma's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number with a location. Her stomach dropped. "Help me, Auntie Emma. I've been kidnapped." It was Maya. Emma made a dangerous decision. She didn't tell Helen, not yet. The risk was too high. Instead, she called Frank, an old friend, a detective known for handling sensitive kidnapping cases and who happened to be on a team of investigators. They followed the shared location. It was on the outskirts, a place people avoided once the sun set. Frank gathered a small team, experienced hands, silent warriors in a city that had long forgotten the sound of justice. 2 nights later, they moved. Every step measured, every breath controlled. Their presence was invisible until it was too late for the criminals to react. The raid was quick, silent, precise. Silent doors were forced, locks clicked open, and behind rusted metal doors, nightmares awaited. 15 children, 12 women, all locked in rooms, bruised, starved, waiting to be trafficked, waiting to disappear. And there, in a corner, trembling but alive, was Maya. By dawn, the operation was exposed to the world. Stephen's world crumbled. The next morning, police arrived at Stephen's home. They charged him with human trafficking, illegally detaining women and children, domestic violence against his wife and children, child cruelty, conspiracy, and kidnapping. Every crime he thought hidden was now exposed, undeniable. As officers led him out in handcuffs, Stephen lifted his head. Emma stood outside her door, calm, unshaken, looking at him with the quiet victory he could never stand. He glared at her, hatred burning in his eyes. But the battle was over. Helen ran out of the house, collapsing into Emma's arms as relief and tears overwhelmed her. A female officer brought Maya out next, tired, shaken, bruised, but alive. The moment mother and daughter saw each other, they ran. And Emma? She just stood there, smiling softly, knowing she had changed the course of 3 lives forever. To every woman living in fear, your silence is not protection. Your voice is your light and your freedom. And to every man who raises his hand, every abuser hiding behind power, know this: there is always a day of reckoning. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Your support means the world to me, and it keeps me bringing you more unforgettable stories from DMU Studio.